Shocking truth. Why God's chosen tribes fought each other. Is the conflict still relevant today? In the heart of a sweltering summer, whispers filled the air like the impending storm. Tension crackled, a raw, electric thrill that rippled through the townsfolk of Shiloh, as legends of betrayal and blood spilled over. How could God's chosen tribes, once united in faith, turn on each other with such ferocity? Underneath the sun, their faces were painted with disbelief, eyes darting as they recalled the ancient feuds that revived like buried spirits. It was in their blood, a haunting legacy gripping their hearts. They cherished stories of miracles and promises, but with each telling, a dark shadow crept in, unraveling the very fabric of their belief. Just as light can illuminate the darkest corners, the past swirled with secrets, strange rituals performed under the moonlight, vengeful spirits said to possess the living. People claimed to hear whispers at twilight, calling them to confront their ancestors' grievances. Who was right? Who was wrong? Were these truly the divine beings they believed had guided their every step? Children stared wide-eyed, clinging to their parents, while adults exchanged nervous glances, their voices barely above a whisper. Are we safe? What if they return? A low murmur swept through the crowd as one elder spoke up, his voice trembling. The blood spilled on this ground craves justice. The past will haunt us until we face it. His words hung thick in the air, pressing down like a weight. An undeniable urgency seeped into the fabric of their lives. But just as it felt like the past would swallow them whole, a swift voice broke through, charging the atmosphere with a new urgency. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the crowd took a breath, it almost felt like a moment of relief, but the heavy air didn't let go. A young man stepped forward, determination etched across his face. I uncovered something, he said, eyes wide with a mix of fear and anticipation. A map, leading to the Temple of Thunder, the final confrontation site. We need to go before they find it. In that instant, hearts raced, pulses quickened, and hands trembled. What truths lay buried? What horrors awaited in the shadows? As the sun dipped low, painting the twilight sky in hues of dread and mystery, one question echoed in their minds. Would they finally confront the past, or would it consume them in its relentless grasp? The air thickened as the young man's words hung before the crowded square, vibrating with urgency. Shiloh's residents exchanged glances, their expressions mingling curiosity, fear, and determination. Whispers erupted, threading through the crowd like wildfires. A map? To where? What does it mean? Listen. The young man raised his voice, attempting to corral their chaos. This isn't just about old fights. This is our chance to uncover something that might change everything. His gaze darted back towards the horizon, as if sensing that unseen forces were already converging. The elder frowned, his brow furrowing with suspicion. And if it's a trap? What if we're stepping into a darkness we cannot return from? The gravity of his question washed over the crowd, evoking shudders and nods of agreement. Yet, the thrill of potential discovery sparred with fear. They had to act. Listen, a woman from the back shouted, stepping forward. If we stay here, we let fear control us. We need to know what's buried beneath our feet. A collective murmur built again. Voices intertwined, doubts clashing against courage. What if it's our blood calling? Someone whispered hoarsely. Our ancestors want justice or revenge. The crowd stiffened as the heavy weight of the past settled deeper, a shroud that clung to their skin. Come with me, the young man shouted again, rallying their spirits. If we don't uncover the truth, we'll remain prisoners of our fears. His eyes burned with passion. There was a fire inside him that seemed contagious. Slowly, hands rose, fingers pointing as they shared pledges of trust. I'll go, someone exclaimed, then another, until the chant echoed, we'll go, growing louder, swelling with fervor. But just then, the oppressive air shifted. It felt like the earth itself had trembled in response. A gust of wind whistled through the crowd, rustling garments, and raising hairs on their bottoms. Laughter faded, replaced by a bone-chilling silence. Then, a whisper broke through the thickening tension. "Did you hear that?" A boyish voice trembled, eyes wide. It sounded like chanting. His words cut through the air, almost a specter in the night. The crowd turned in unison, eyes straining against the dimming light. In the distance, shadows flickered. They looked like they were swirling, forming shapes that danced just beyond the edge of their comprehension. The energy shifted again, darker now, like nightfall creeping over the landscape. "Is that?" one man murmured, gripping the shoulder of the person next to him, his voice trembling. The young man stood firm, mustering his courage. "We can't turn back. That's them calling. We need to face them to find the truth." But doubt rippled through the crowd, tangible and suffocating. People cast anxious glances between each other, weighing the pull of curiosity against the shadows of fear. As if to answer their inner turmoil, a chilling sound echoed through the night. It wasn't he just chanting anymore. It was a haunting chorus, rising and falling like a wave of sorrow. It called to them, beckoned them closer to the origins of dread and betrayal. Their collective breaths came quick, pulses racing. Would they muster the bravery to follow the echoes, to venture toward the Temple of Thunder? Each heartbeat was fueled by desperation to find out what truly lay ahead. Then, in the blink of an eye, the sky darkened, overshadowed by a looming figure emerging from the indistinct shadows. "They will find you," it murmured, a voice laced with malice. A scream broke through the crowd. Chaos erupted, and a stampede of feet thundered as they scrambled backward, hearts pounding against terror. What awaited them in the depths of night? The path before them was raised with uncertainty, and the only question echoing louder was, who would make it to the Temple of Thunder, and what horrors would they face there? Panic rippled through the crowd like a sudden burst of wind. Bodies surged in every direction, faces twisted in fear. The chant grew louder, a mesmerizing echo that seemed to pull them toward the unknown. Some stood frozen, gripped by the shadows that danced along the fringes of the square, while others pushed against the tide of retreat, drawn to the eerie call. "Stay together," the young man shouted, his voice rising above the fracas. He extended his arm, desperate to reach anyone willing to listen. "Don't let it control you. We have to go toward the temple." His words were brave, but within him, he felt the chill of uncertainty gripping his chest. "Are you crazy?" a woman yelled, her eyes wide with terror. "We can't just walk into the abyss. Or maybe we're staring at the truth we've avoided for too long," he countered, though he could see the hesitance lurking in the back of their eyes. The figure from the shadows drew closer, and with each step, the chanting seemed to fluctuate, as if answering the heartbeat of the crowd. "They will find you," it hissed, the words wrapping around them like a noose. At once, everyone's resolve felt like sand slipping through their fingers. The flash of pale light broke through the dark, illuminating the figure for just a moment. It was thin and elongated, its features obscured by a dark cloak that billowed around it as if caught in a phantom wind. Eyes glowed with an odd luminescence, deeply unsettling, void of warmth. "What do they want?" a young boy whimpered, clutching onto his mother tightly, his small frame trembling. She could only shake her head, too terrified to offer comfort. "Is this what they've awakened?" Another man gasped, his voice shaking. "They're the reason we've suffered all these years." No, the young man shouted, trying to shout over the crowd. "This isn't the time for accusations. We need to face them, to confront what and who comes for us." He stepped forward, putting himself in the path of fear. Terrestrial weight pressed down, yet he forged onward. But just then, the ground beneath them started to vibrate, the echoes of ancient power resonating from the depths. The air thickened with a smell, earth and decay mixing, and dread coiled around their hearts. It felt like the very earth was alive and angry. "What if it's true?" someone murmured in the back, their voice a mere wisp in the fray. "What if our ancestors have come to punish us?" "That's enough," the young man roared, turning to face the throng. "We're not here for guilt or blame. We're here to seek truth or die trying." His heart raced, feeling each pulse battling against the fear he could feel vibrating through the collective, if sensing the resolve in the young man's voice. The chanting intensified, swirling into a crescendo that resonated within their bones. It was a call to arms or to madness, it was anyone's guess. The figure in the shadows laughed softly, its voice intertwining seamlessly with the chant, and it sent a shiver along the back of their necks. Then, without warning, the energy cracked through the air like lightning. A burst of blinding light shimmered briefly, illuminating countless figures behind the first. They stepped into view, their faces a tapestry of grief, rage, and despair. An ancestral army, alive with stories long unrevealed, standing to confront the living. "What have we unleashed?" Someone cried out, and the hysteria boiled. But the young man remained resolute amid the chaos, sensing the tipping point. Only one thought pierced the fog of fear. These were not just shadows, they were memories. They were warnings. "Then let us go," he shouted, galvanizing the remaining spirit. To the temple. He turned, aiming forward, ready to plunge into the depth of uncertainty. Would they follow? Would these spirits protect or destroy? As thunder rumbled overhead, they braced themselves and stepped toward the gathering storm. Would the truth be there waiting, or would it devour them whole? Behind them, laughter echoed, haunting and timeless as the true journey began. How many had the courage to press on? What awaited in the depths of the temple? And could they ever truly return? The crowd hesitated for a breath, but then the resolve of the young man ignited a spark. Slowly, others began to follow him, pushing against the tide of terror. They moved together, a ragtag band of souls pursuing the flicker of hope amid the suffocating darkness. As they approached the temple, the chanting grew thunderous, the very ground pulsating beneath their feet. Shadows shifted and swirled, almost alive, drawing patterns of dread that twisted their minds. The young man felt sick, like the weight of the past was being dragged behind him, clinging with icy fingers. "Don't look back," he yelled, forcing his voice to break through the cacophony. The histrionics were mad and drenched in fear, but somewhere in that web of panic, he sensed unity. Focus on each other. Then they rounded a corner, and the temple loomed before them. Ancient stones, cracked and worn, stretched toward the pitch-black sky. Gale winds howled, sweeping debris across the entrance that seemed to warn them away. A sickly green light seeped from within, promising either salvation or despair. "What if we made a mistake?" Someone whispered, their words barely carried over the relentless wind. "No," he shot back, adrenaline surging. "We can't turn back now. We will face whatever is waiting for us together." With every step toward the entrance, the chanting morphed into words in ancient language, unintelligible yet hauntingly familiar. It seemed to awaken something deep within their bones, convictions long buried rising to the surface. A feeling of unity began to spread like wildfire, igniting in their chests. Pushing through the threshold, a blinding flash consumed them. As their eyes adjusted to the eerie glow, they found themselves in a vast hall adorned with strange carvings, depicting grotesque figures writhing in agony. The air thickened, infused with power, history, and a resounding mourning that seeped into the very walls. "Why did we come here?" a young woman murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "What do they want?" "Answers," the young man replied, his voice echoing defiantly. "If they're here, it means they have a story to share, and we must listen." But before he could say more, a figure materialized before them, a towering silhouette with the same luminescent eyes that had haunted them outside. The ancestral spirit loomed with a commanding presence, its voice reverberating through the hall like thunder. "You dare approach?" It boomed, each word drenching them in a raw chill. "You who have forgotten the bonds that tie you? You who severed paths forged long ago?" The crowd shrank back in fear, but the young man stood firm, his resolve hardening into a shield. "We have not forgotten. We seek to understand." Laughter filled the chamber, a dark, hollow sound that spread like poison. "To understand? You come seeking truth, but are you prepared for the weight of it? For the legacy of conflict born from your forebears?" A sharp pain shot through him, doubt gnawed at his certainty. Still, he stared into those glowing eyes, the air heavy with expectation. He didn't trust the ancestral spirit, but he understood one thing clearly: the truth was demanding to be revealed. Suddenly, the figures carved into the walls began to move, twisting and contorting. Each shift echoed a tale of sorrow and betrayal. their stories weaving through the hall like a chilling melody. The whispers came alive, filling their ears with long-buried grievances and urgent warnings. The young man gasped as light flickered wildly, projecting visions of battles fought and alliances shattered. The lessons of old were mingling with their present, a convocation of generations woven into their fate. "Stay strong," he yelled, trying to rally the others as fear seized their expressions. "This truth is ours now. We cannot shy away." But could they truly bear what lay ahead? Could they dissect the pain of their ancestors without losing a piece of themselves in the process? Amid the maelstrom of revelations, the ancestral spirit raised an unseen arm. "Then prepare, children of the past, for the tale has only just begun." A ground-shaking tremor rippled through the hall, and a deafening roar swept over them, leaving only darkness in its wake. Would the truth be the salvation they sought, or had they unearthed a horror that could bring them to their knees? The darkness passed slowly, like a thick fog lifting to reveal a sinister landscape. The crowd squinted against an unsettling silence, the echoes of the ancestral spirit lingering like ghostly whispers. The walls around them were now eerily still, the grotesque figures now blended into the shadows, waiting, watching. "What just happened?" one of them murmured, fear crackling in her voice. The young man turned, scanning the faces, eyes wide, breath shallow. He found himself gasping, unsure if they crossed a threshold or entered a curse. The weight of the spirit's words pulsed in his mind, heavy like a stone. "What do we do now?" someone else asked, their voice trembling. "Listen," he urged. "Listen to what it has to share." As if in response, the air thickened again, vibrating with an energy so fierce it threatened to unhinge them. Pulses of green light flickered through the chamber, igniting once more the ancient carvings, and they came alive with renewed fury. In that moment, figures twisted violently on the walls, shifting between scenes of horror, hope, and despair. He saw flashes of beloved figures, families torn apart, alliances that collapsed like fragile houses of cards, memories etched in blood, and betrayal spilled forth, overwhelming their senses. "Look," the young man pointed. "It's showing us they fought for what they believed was right. For family, for honor." The faces around him twisted, confusion mingling with a deeper horror. "But they were wrong," a man gasped, shaking his head. "They condemned themselves with their choices. Or perhaps it's about understanding why the choices were made," another voice chimed, barely audible through the rising tension. The young man felt the strength and unity fading as fear seeped back in. "We can't blame them without understanding their pain." Just then, the vibrant energy turned to ice. A voice, softer yet more menacing than before, filled the hall. "You believe you are different?" it asked. "You refuse to recognize the echoes of your ancestors' sins in your actions?" "No," the young man shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. "We're here to change that." The room began to pulse, the ground beneath them vibrating dangerously. It was as if the very structure of their reality cracked under the weight of the truth. A figure loomed larger than life, a tremendous being of shimmering green energy that blocked their escape, mouth stretching into a wicked grin that promised torment. "Change requires sacrifice," it hissed, each word dripping like venom. The faces of the crowd turned from terror to an all-consuming fear, the realization dawning like a cruel sun. They might have to confront something inside themselves. Chests tightened as the ground quaked again, straining under the growing force. "But we can overcome this," the young man called, when doubt shadowed the faces around him. "If we face the truth together, we can break these chains." The spirit laughed, a haunting melody that swept through the chamber. "You are but children playing in the ashes of your forebears' conflicts. This cycle, this pain will ensnare you again and again. Are you truly prepared for the cost of understanding?" A cascade of memories exploded around them, bending reality until it felt like they were standing on the precipice of all that was ever lost. The truth, hidden beneath layers of anguish, threatened to engulf them. What would they uncover about their own hearts? "Look!" a woman screamed, her finger trembling as she pointed at the carvings. "They're showing us the path not taken." Light grew blinding. Hope flickered alongside fear. They found themselves standing at the crossroads of despair and redemption, faced with choices that could shape their destinies. "Will we break the cycle?" the young man pleaded as the waves of light intensified. Are we ready to choose differently? A sudden surge of power surged through the hall as the ancestral spirit unleashed an overwhelming torrent of light and sound, slicing through the air like a blade. But would they find the courage to rise, or would they be devoured by the very shadows they sought to escape? And in that moment, the light split into countless forms, unveiling futures that loomed dark and bright. The truth hung on the brink. Would they grasp it, or let it slip away? The blinding light spun into a vortex of color that felt alive, an exhilarating whirlpool of fate pulling them in every direction. Yet, with the overwhelming brilliance came an echoing despair, a cacophony of voices reaching out from the past, clawing at their consciences. As the vibrant waves shifted, towering figures emerged, immovable and grim. They towered like ancient statues, reminders of battles that forged destinies but also tore them apart. The tension was palpable. The young man's heart raced. What does this mean for us? The air crackled, feeling thick like the weight of untold stories. We must choose, he shouted, his voice echoing against the cold stone. Not just for ourselves, but for them. We can learn from their pain. But uncertainty gripped the crowd like a vice. Shadows of doubt flitted across their faces. Learn? One man scoffed, stepping forward. They made their choices. What do we owe them? His voice shook as he pointed at the figures. They are the reason we're here, caught in this nightmare. No, the young man howled, desperation edging into his tone. We are all part of this web, each thread a life, a decision. If we allow ourselves to succumb to rage, to blame, the cycle continues. A whisper undercurrent swept through the crowd, voices murmuring in the darkness, each echo radiating uncertainty. Is it too late? Someone muttered, glancing nervously at the flickering green light. How can we change what has already been done? The massive figure of shimmering energy seemed to pulse knowingly, feeding on their doubt, its grin sharp as glass. You seek redemption for their sins? You need only look within to find your own. Then, like thunder cracking through the sky, the ground shook violently. Stones crumbled, dust billowed, and the faces of the ancestral spirits contorted in agony. The cacophony reached a fever pitch, and in that moment of chaos, something shifted. The carvings became clearer. Their deep lines etched mourning, hope, and betrayal all at once. One of the young women suddenly stepped forward, voice steady. What if we don't have to fight? She asked, determination shining amidst the chaos. What if by understanding each other's pain, we break free? The ancestral spirit roared with laughter, a sound like grinding stones. You truly think understanding replaces sacrifice? It sneered, the light flickering ominously as shadows rippled across the walls. Attention cracked like a whip. It's worth the sacrifice if it means breaking the cycle. The young man growled, clenching his fists. The power surged through him, and he thrust his arms wide. If we embraced the truth of our shared pain, we shared victories could rise, no matter how heavy the cost. A wave of energy erupted from him, igniting the chamber as it flowed into the crowd. Their fear morphed into solidarity, lights igniting in their eyes, faces taut with determination. For the first time, hope fluttered amid the chaos, but the spirit shifted, towering over them, energies swirling in menacing disarray. Hope is a dangerous illusion, it hissed. Prepare for the reckoning that comes when truth forces you to face your darkness. As the chamber shuddered violently, flickers of uncertainty danced through the young man's mind, but he fought to lock onto that glimmer of hope within. Would they grasp hands and face the collapse together? And then, just when it seemed light would conquer dark, a blinding flash engulfed them. The chamber felt worlds away, each sound muted, each heartbeat like thunder in his chest. The light dimmed, and reality tore apart at the seams. They were no longer in the chamber. Instead, they found themselves scattered in a vast expanse, disoriented. What lay ahead in this uncharted territory? A voice of familiar whisper echoed through the void, urging the young man on, yet fading like mist in the air. He could sense the pulse of the collective's fear rippling around him. Why had the light led them here? What truths awaited them in the vast unknown? Would they finally confront some deeper pain, or would they be lost forever to the shadows? The vast expanse they landed in felt alien, its surface shimmering like water under a moonless sky. Each breath they took was heavy with the weight of uncertainty, yet tinged with a faint trace of the hope that had ignited moments ago. The young man pivoted, eyes widening as he scanned the horizon for any signs of the others. "Is everyone okay?" he called, his voice trembling as it bounced off an unseen barrier. The echoes returned to him, hollow and cold. Panic threatened to stitch its way back through his veins, but he forcibly pushed it aside that a figure emerged, struggling through the haze. It was the young woman who had spoken of understanding. She stumbled forward, and he reached out instinctively, steadying her. "We're not alone," she wheezed. I think we're all here." Relief coursed through him momentarily, but dread quickly replaced it when he saw the others slowly materializing one by one, shadows flickering in the indistinct space. Their faces mirrored his fear, confusion twisting their features, forming a grim tapestry of determination and anxiety. "What just happened?" a tall man asked, shaking his head, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Where are we?" "I wish I knew," the young man replied, glancing at the darkness around them. "But we have to find a way out, together." As if the very air had sensed their uncertainty, a whisper echoed in the distance, a ghostly chant that struck deep in their cores. It grew louder, an unsettling chorus intertwining with sobs, cries, and laughter, a haunting melody of ancestral grief and joy. Suddenly, colors began to swirl at the edges of their vision, vibrant shapes coalescing into disjointed images, visions of ancient battles, families torn apart, towns alight in conflict. The cacophony poured in, drowning out anything resembling hope. "Look," the young woman gasped, pointing at a radiant orb pulsing in the center of the chaotic visions. An energy radiated from it, drawing them closer. "We have to reach it. Maybe it knows how to help us." They moved together despite the confusion still swirling around them. Each footfall felt like a deliberate push against the weight of history. As they approached the orb, the specters of the past began to clear, revealing the faces of those who had suffered and battled. The anguish in their eyes pierced through the veil of courage they, the living, had managed to conjure. "Why are they looking at us like that?" another woman murmured, placing a trembling hand over her heart. The heaviness in the air deepened. The faces seemed to meld together, creating a grotesque reflection of their own emotional turmoil. "They maybe want us to understand," the young man said slowly. Each expression, a lesson, a truth. "We can't turn away." Just as he spoke, the orb flared, bathing them in shimmering light. Agonizing cries began to rise and mix with their own thoughts, overwhelming and visceral, echoing the anger, sorrow, and confusion of generations. "Feel it," the young woman shouted, her voice slicing through the dread. "We have to embrace it. This is our path to unity. Pain can't be ignored. We must own our story." All around, the crowd hesitated. Shadows loomed larger, as if waiting for the final act to unfold. Would they break apart under the weight of the ancestral voices, or would they stand united against the chaos, confronting the raw truth that bound their fates together? In that fleeting moment, the mass of consciousness around him collided with the weight of his resolve. A flicker of collective understanding surged through him, igniting courage amidst the fear. "We can break free," he declared, more forcefully now. "Together, let us face this truth." But just as their resolve reached a fever pitch, the orb unleashed a torrent of memories, a flood of betrayal, a stark betrayal of trust. Faces blurred into one another. Blame began to anchor deep, as the figures they thought they could learn from twisted, whispering of allegiances and betrayals. Screams resounded, voices rising to a fevered pitch as the ground beneath them trembled. The energy shifted, and with it, the ominous specter of judgment loomed. Their feet were frozen in fear, caught between two agonizing choices: accept the painful history or let it tear them apart. In the center of that turmoil, the young man grasped tightly to the young woman's hand, searching her eyes. "What if the truth isn't what we expected?" he whispered, heart racing. And as the orb dimmed, swallowing their hopes in a swirling vortex, he couldn't shake the feeling that the next step would either bind them together in a fight for understanding or shatter everything they had fought so hard to secure. What awaited them was shrouded in darkness, a veil obscuring what lay ahead. Had they crossed too far into the abyss, or was there still a glimmer of redemption waiting for them? As the orb pulsated with a dim, erratic light, The very ground beneath their feet cracked open like a fragile shell, revealing an abyss swirling with shadows. An instant wave swept through the group. An unspoken understanding wrapped them in cold dread. What they had glimpsed was more than just a shared history. It was a harbinger of their own fears, and a revelation of the potential fractures dividing them. "Run!" the tall man shouted, a flicker of adrenaline igniting his fervor. But where could they run? The expanse around them grew smaller, as if the dark veil were closing in, driven by some unseen force eager to consume them whole. "Stay together," the young woman cried, pulling the young man closer. They locked eyes again, her grip grounding him amidst the calamity. With relentless energy threatening to swallow them, he felt the heat of urgency surging through him. But doubt slithered back into his mind. What if we can't escape this place? He breathed, the weight of his unspoken fears pressing down. The vision of betrayal from the orb mirrored his own thoughts. Was it possible they were not just battling the shadows, but also fighting each other in their hearts? Voices clashed around them as arguments broke out, each person's interpretation of the memories diverging into personal grievances and historical injustices. Past pains transformed into present conflicts. "You don't understand," a woman yelled, gesturing wildly. "You think this is just about the past, but it's me. It's us." Everything spiraled. No longer were they merely wanderers seeking answers. They stood on shaky ground, faced with the very essence of their identities, each anchored by unresolved pain and regrets. Waves of resentment surged, the ancestral whispers transforming into accusations fired like arrows. Retreating, the young man could only watch as resolve shattered. Desperation clawed at him. "We have to listen." His voice barely pierces through the chaos. "We have to face it together." The young woman echoed his plea, grief-lined in her voice. "If we keep fighting among ourselves, all we do is repeat the cycle of hurt." Just then, from the depths of the void surrounding them, strange figures began to creep. Eerie silhouettes, twisted and malformed, emerged from the darkness, representing each person's unacknowledged fears and failures. Their eyes shone with a haunting glimmer, relentless echoes of the pain that never seemed to fade. It was as if those very spirits sensed the discord and were drawn to feed off it. A collective gasp reverberated through the group. "No," another man protested, backing away. "They thrive on our fear. We can't let them take us." His voice cracked at the edges, pushing the group to the brink of chaos. What if it's true? The young man thought, heart hammering. Was this the moment they fell apart? Or could they reclaim strength from the shadows that threatened to divide them? Beads of sweat formed on his brow as he choked on the weight of their decision. Would they lean into the shared history, recognizing their pain without letting it sink them deeper? Or would they let this moment tear apart the fragile threads that bound their fates? As the silhouettes closed in, arms outstretched, all hope teetered on the precipice. Just then, a single voice broke through the tumultuous cries, soft but imperative. "We can fight this together." The words hung in the air, resonating like a bell. Suddenly, a flicker of light broke through the shadows, momentarily illuminating the group. It was as if the encroaching darkness paused, waited, held its breath, sensing the shift. But even as the resolve appeared to strengthen, an unexpected truth began to unravel in eerie silence. The orb's flickering pulse revealed images of their fractured pasts, the truths entwining in a way that left everyone gasping. What lay ahead was a choice, one that could either liberate them or bury them deeper in the pain they sought to escape. Was this the final lesson, or merely a glimpse into the abyss? As shadows churned ominously and the air thickened with anticipation, the young man knew the next moment would either be their salvation or their demise. What truth would they face next, and would they dare accept the consequences of what they might uncover? The air buzzed with tension, thick enough to choke. Shadows swirled closer, stretching their claw-like limbs towards the group. The young man's heart thundered in his chest as fear's icy fingers wrapped around him. Memories he thought he had buried surged into consciousness, bursting forth like a dam breaking. He felt the suffocating weight of his own regrets, intertwining with the darkness. "Look!" the young woman shrieked, pointing to the orb, its light pulsating with a fierce intensity. Each pulse seemed to beat in time with their collective dread. The images swirling inside were no longer abstract. Faces and scenes twisted into nightmarish forms, each one a reminder of betrayal, pain, and fractured loyalty. He began, but the words stuck in his throat. What could he say when his own past echoed so loudly in his mind? Focus, the tall man yelled, trying to rally their dwindling strength. This is our moment. We can't let it consume us. But even his voice wavered, uncertainty creeping in. The young man felt a surge of anger. It was as if their fears had fused into a single, pulsating entity determined to rip them apart. Stop fighting each other, he shouted, desperation coloring his tone. We need to face our fears, not let them tear us apart. But the shadows twisted and convulsed, their forms morphing. They were no longer just figures. They became reflections of their deepest regrets. The lines between the living and the shadows blurred, and he could feel a collective shiver run through the group. Those who had stood together now hesitated, nerves fraying. What if it does consume us? A voice quavered, and the young man turned to see a woman, eyes wide with terror. We have too much to lose, or maybe we have everything to gain, he countered, heart racing. What if we strip away these masks? What if we face the truth head-on? Just then, a piercing cry broke through the darkness, a cry of anguish, a lament that snapped their attention away from the specters. The young woman pressed her hands to her ears, trying to block out the sorrowful wail. We can't ignore it, but we can't let it drown us either. But the weight of the shadows surged, pushing down, suffocating. They moved as if alive, pulling on fibers of history, reaching for vulnerabilities. Remember? One of the figures rasped, an echoing voice that was both haunting and familiar. Remember when you chose to turn away? No, the young man cried. This isn't us. But the shadows were relentless, dragging up long-buried memories, the arguments, the accusations. They threatened to expose vulnerabilities they had hidden from one another. The pain was palpable, thick as smoke in the air. Faces of loved ones, arguments that turned ugly, and regrets that cut deep. Look past the hurt, shouted the tall man, stepping forward defiantly. These shadows have no power unless we give it to them. A renewed fire sparked within the group, igniting hope in the darkness. Together, we can break this cycle, the young woman urged. We can rewrite our story. But just as resolve flickered, a gut-wrenching truth crashed down like a wave. The shadows began to shift, revealing harbingers of their deepest fears: betrayal, loneliness, and despair. You don't truly know each other, the night whispered. You can't escape what you've created. It was a taunt, cruel, and aimed at the heart. Their shared history, fractured and painful, wound around them like barbed wire. The young man struggled against the gripping fear. Don't let it hold you, he screamed, feeling the tears slip from his eyes. This isn't the end. This is a chance to unite. But still, the dread crashed over him in waves. As darkness enveloped them, he wondered, could their plea for unity be strong enough? Would they choose connection over division, or would they sink deeper into despair, clinging to the very shadows they sought to escape? And just then, from the depths of the dark, a horrific revelation slammed into him. What if the shadows weren't just their past, they were their very future too? With that thought gnawing at him, the abyss waited, ready to swallow them whole. What if the true battle lay not with the shadows, but within the bonds they dared to challenge? The shadows danced closer, their whispers intertwined with the pulsing chaos. The young man stood at the forefront, trembling but determined. He needed to pull his friends back from the brink, to ignite the spark of unity amid the thickening darkness. Listen, he shouted, his voice reverberating. We're standing at the crossroads of our past and our future. We have to face this together. I don't want to, a voice quavered from the back. What if it destroys us? It was a plea mixed with desperation. Fear hung heavy in the air, wrapping around each person like a suffocating blanket. But the young man refused to let doubt snuff out their flickering hope. No, this is our moment. If we want to break free from the cycles of pain, we need to confront our fears directly. We need to stop letting them rule us. The shadows shifted, their forms contorting as emotions surged around them. A figure stepped forward, braving the darkness. It was the young woman from before, a glimmer of resolve in her eyes. Yes, right, she exclaimed, clutching the young man's arm. Understanding is the first step. Without understanding our pain, we can't heal. As her words settled, something shifted in the atmosphere. While shadows pressed against them, a flicker of possibility ignited within the group. Voices morphed, mingling dread with determination, drawing strength from their shared vulnerability. "Let us reclaim our story," a man shouted, clenching his fists. The fear didn't vanish, but it became a driving force instead, less a weight and more a fuel. Behind him, faces were set with grim purpose, eye in response. The colossal shadows undulated, revealing glimpses of ancestral pain. The voices grew louder, the weight of long-held grievances clawing at their hearts. But with a shared breath, the group stood firm, ready to confront the cacophony of their history. "Look," the young man called, voice steady. "They're showing us what's trapped within. Let us not run from it. Let us step toward it." With those words, the oppressive shadows thickened, swirling around them, a tempest of emotion. They could feel the anger and sorrow resonating within the air. Each shout from the shadows echoed back their own unresolved emotions, betrayals, hurts, loneliness. But they couldn't let this be their end. The young man squeezed the young woman's hand tighter, drawing strength from her presence. Together, he yelled over the rising hysteria. "No distance can separate us if we hold on to what brings us together. We must trust each other." As blood surged, the group joined hands, echoing a wave of strength. Their hearts beat in sync, drawing warmth from that bond, and step by step, they surged through the shadows, light radiating from their collective belief. Together, they echoed, pushing against the oppressive mass. For every conflict faced, for every tear shed, we are stronger. A blinding light erupted as they crossed the threshold of darkness together, casting shadows aside. The ancestral figures paused, their torment momentarily halted by the enduring power of unity that enveloped the living. The weight of shame and pain lightened, and the energy crackled with hope. Finally, the young man whispered, as they entered a path illuminated by vibrant colors. The sorrow and resentment began to dissolve, replaced with an expansive feeling of awakening. In that place of clarity, they could see the threads linking their stories, woven together in a tapestry of shared struggles and victories. The air buzzed with new energy, as palpable as spring after a harsh winter. "We want to become the ghosts of our past. We will learn and grow." The young woman stated firmly, point one by one. Faces broke into smiles, the light illuminating more than just their surroundings, but also their shared destiny. The shadows faded, revealing their true selves, wrapped not in grief, but in resilience and hope. In those moments, the young man felt lighter, unshackled from the haunting weight of the past. No longer would they be bound by inherited mistakes. Instead, they'd create a new legacy. "It won't be easy," he remembered the ancestral spirits murmuring. "But in facing the truth, you'll forge a path unseen and unwritten." Determined, he turned to his companions. "Are we ready? Let us move forward together." And as the first rays of dawn broke through the darkness, a new day emerged. They stepped into the light, ready to rewrite their story, one rooted in understanding, connection, and the courage to embrace their shared humanity. The journey was just beginning, but they would never walk alone again. Their bonds now unbreakable, they turned to the rising sun, hearts open to whatever lay ahead, embracing the adventure of healing together. Right now, I need you to be part of this story. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales that will continue to unfold. Smash that like button now and help feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you more thrilling stories. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just went down. We want to hear your thoughts. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Together, let us keep the momentum going because your support means everything.